was a morning when Manchester seemed to hold its breath, the skies gray, the streets quiet, and the city united in mourning. Ricky Hatton, the man who once made arenas tremble with chants of his name, was being laid to rest. There were no roaring crowds this time, no flashing lights, no ring bell to signal another round. Yet, the emotion in the air was heavier than any night he'd ever fought under. From early dawn, people lined the streets, wearing sky-blue scarves and carrying small flags of Manchester City, his team, his pride, his symbol. They came not as fans, but as family, to say goodbye to their champion. The cortege began its slow journey from the Cheshire Cheese pub in Hyde, the place that had been his second home for years. The sight of the Reliant Regal van, the iconic three-wheeler from Only Fools and Horses, which Hatton adored, driving ahead of the coffin brought faint smiles through tears. It was pure Ricky, funny, real, unpretentious. The route was carefully chosen, tracing his life's geography, past his beloved gym, through the heart of Manchester, by the AO Arena, where he once fought under the lights, and finally toward the Etihad Stadium, the home of Manchester City. Every stop carried memories. Every corner held someone who had once shaken his hand or shouted his name from a crowd. As the hearse passed, people clapped quietly, some whispering prayers, others breaking into the familiar chant that had followed him throughout his career. "There's only one Ricky Hatton." That chant, once a roar of celebration, now echoed like a soft hymn of farewell. When the cortege reached Manchester Cathedral, the rain began to fall, gentle, steady, as if the heavens themselves joined in mourning. Inside, the pews filled with family, friends, and a remarkable array of faces from across sport and entertainment. Wayne Rooney sat silently near the front, his eyes downcast. Liam Gallagher, dressed in dark shades, nodded respectfully as the coffin entered. Tyson Fury, visibly moved, stood beside fellow fighters, each man there not just as a colleague, but as someone who understood what Hatton had given to the sport and the city. The brass band began to play Winter Wonderland, the tune forever linked to Hatton's ring walks and the joyful chaos of his fan base. It was a song that once filled stadiums with laughter and pride, and now it filled the cathedral with something deeper, remembrance. When Ricky's son, Campbell, stepped forward to speak, the hall fell utterly silent. His hands trembled slightly as he began, but his words were steady, filled with raw love. "I can't explain how much I'm going to miss you, Dad," he said, pausing to swallow his emotion. "We won't make any new memories, but the ones we did, I'll cherish forever." His voice cracked at the end, but in that moment, the bond between father and son felt eternal. Every parent, every child in that room felt it too. Many wept openly, and for good reason. This was more than a eulogy. It was a son's goodbye to a man who had taught him not only how to fight, but how to live with heart. Those who followed spoke not just of victories or titles, but of the man behind them. His mother, Carol, had written a letter that was read aloud, a mother's pride etched in every line. "From the moment you were born, you were our little champion," her words said, trembling but powerful. Laughter broke through tears as friends recalled Ricky's mischief, his cheeky grin, his unshakable loyalty. Tyson Fury's tribute brought another wave of emotion. "Ricky made every young fighter believe it was possible," he said. "He showed us that heart can carry you further than anything else." The truth of that statement was written all over Hatton's career. He wasn't just a fighter who won belts. He was a fighter who won people. As the service went on, it became clear that this was not just a funeral. It was a celebration of a life lived honestly and fully. The cathedral, grand and solemn, was filled with stories that stretched far beyond the ring. People spoke of his generosity, how he would stop for anyone, anywhere, to talk or sign an autograph, of how he never forgot where he came from, even when the world put him on a pedestal. In every story, the theme was the same. Ricky Hatton was one of us, a working-class lad who made it big, but never stopped being real. When the service ended and the coffin was carried back out into the rain, applause broke out once more, not loud, not raucous, but steady and heartfelt. Outside, thousands who couldn't get inside the cathedral stood shoulder to shoulder. Many threw flowers as the procession passed. Others simply stood with hands clasped, heads bowed. The blue coffin shimmered under the drizzle, carried past the Etihad, where fans had gathered, singing softly, "Blue Moon." The sound rose through the damp air, haunting, beautiful, and perfect. In moments like this, a city shows what it values most. Manchester's farewell to Ricky Hatton wasn't just about grief. It was about gratitude. He wasn't a flawless man. He had his struggles, his battles beyond the ring. But that was part of what made people love him even more. He never hid his pain, and by doing so, he helped others face theirs. When he spoke openly about mental health, about coming back from darkness, he reminded everyone that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. That honesty made him more than a sportsman. It made him a voice of courage for so many who needed to hear it. As the day drew on, and the last of the mourners drifted away, Manchester felt quieter than usual. The flags drooped in the rain, the songs faded, and yet something lingered, a shared sense of having witnessed the end of an era, but also the continuation of a spirit. The people's champion had gone, but what he stood for remained: humility, humor, heart. He had carried those traits into every fight, every interview, every handshake. That's why this goodbye felt so personal to so many. Wayne Rooney was seen embracing members of the Hatton family before leaving, his eyes still wet. Liam Gallagher walked out into the street, lifted his head to the sky, and simply whispered, "Top man." Tyson Fury lingered, standing quietly near the hearse, his massive frame somehow smaller in grief. Around them, fans began to disperse slowly, unwilling to let go. Some took photos, some held candles, others just stood in silence. It wasn't the noise that defined this farewell, it was the stillness. As evening approached, the lights of Manchester glowed softly against the wet pavements. The memory of the day would live on in every story told that night, in pubs, in homes, in gyms where young fighters shadowboxed with dreams born from the legend they had just buried. Ricky Hatton's name would continue to be spoken with affection, with respect, and with that familiar smile people couldn't help but wear when they remembered him. Because for Manchester, he wasn't just a boxer. He was proof that greatness could come from anywhere, that heart matters more than fame, and that even when the gloves come off, the fight to be kind, to be real, to be human, never ends. There was only one Ricky Hatton, and today, his city proved it once again. The cheers have faded, but the love remains, echoing through the streets he walked, the arenas he filled, and the hearts he touched.